Good afternoon, PMO superheroes. This is Hannah from Wellington, and thank you for joining us for our Future PMO Academy Learning Week. I'm very happy to introduce this afternoon's speaker, Federico Vargas. Federico is based in Costa Rica, and his company, GE360, is our Wellington partner in Latin America. Deliver the PMO practitioner course, as well as a number of other services. He's a business advisor and agile coach, and today will help us to uncover the paradigms around agility and the misinterpretations of its values and principles. We will be having a Q&A session at the end, so if you would like to ask Federico anything, please feel free to do so in the question panel to the right, and we will aim to get through as many as we can. So, Federico, over to you.
Well, thank you, Hannah. Good morning from Costa Rica to everyone, afternoon to all of you guys who are connecting. I will figure we will have few people from this side of the ocean or the Atlantic, considering the time. But it is for me, it's a pleasure to be sharing with you guys my perspectives and my truths around agility, if you want to call it. And that's the reason why I call this particular webinar I Work in Agile Projects. For interaction purposes, we're going to be using the app Menti to present. So if you're joining, and if you may go to the address that you see at the top there of the presentation, right next to the Wellington logo, that it says go to Menti, www.menti.com, and use the code 5409. I see some of you guys have already joined and are already giving some love, so I appreciate that. I'm gonna write down here on the chat so that you can actually, if you're just joining us, make sure that you go to www.menti.com and enter the code 5409. So we're going to begin with that. And then, as Hannah said, my name is Federico Vargas. I'm based here in Costa Rica. And what I will be sharing with you guys is it's based around my experience of working with organizations, Fortune 500 and 500 organizations all over the place. We are very lucky in our organization to work with government organizations and Fortune 500 organizations around the globe in agile transformations, in PMO implementations, in enterprise project management, maturity development. So that is what we do, and based on that is what I'm actually going to base my conversation around with you guys. So it's we're going to be talking about as 4 particular things that I consider are important for the conversation. The first thing is we're going to talk about agile, and for me it's a question I'm going to throw to you guys. Really, agile projects? We hear that more and more people saying that I used to work in productive projects or in even more so traditional approach projects or in waterfall projects, and now I work in agile projects. And to me, that's I don't know the exact word to put in that, but I will share with you guys my perspective around it. And based on that, we're going to try to call things by their name. This second part of our conversation or presentation. Then we're going to talk about it is me, either I am or I am not. And we're going to talk about what I mean by that. And then I will be wrapping up at the end of the session. So we're going to be interacting here in the presentation. The first thing we're going to talk about is really agile projects. And well, from my perspective and my understanding, this thing we understand agility. Well, first of all, it was not invented by the people who signed the manifesto. I'm very lucky to say that I know a couple of them, but personally. But they decided to take the agile name and conception and put it around the manifesto and the different values that they decided to value, based on the things that the practices or methods or frameworks that they had already created and have been using for around a decade were important for them. So this has been around for over 30 years, right? The manifesto over 20, well, in 2001, but it has actually gained well, a lot of traction and a lot of more recognition around the globe since around the 2011 when it started, or 12, when it started to get into what we understand now as scaling agility or agile or organizational agility. But you know, we'll still hear people that are starting to work and they get to know what agility is, and they found manifest, or they take a training in a particular method or framework, probably more so if they come from the project management environment, it will probably be a Scrum. And they're starting to look into Kanban, which is even more, if it's even older than agility, right? But you see people and you hear people saying, I work in Agile projects. And it's all right to say it if you don't know that you don't know, from my perspective. But once you know and understand what agility is and what it means and what it encompasses, and once you understand, and if you understand project management and projects and their nature, you wouldn't be saying this. And that's the reason why we're going to try to figure out during this conversation. And we're going to do it together because we're going to be working here. And I have a first question for you guys there. It will show you whatever you're logging. If you're logged in your cell phone, it will show you this space for you to write a little question. What is an Agile project? Since we're actually talking about Agile projects, what will you say an Agile project is? And I will actually appreciate you guys entering, your responses and submitting it. We're going to give a couple of, it is software. Okay, cool. We have the first answer there. Iterative development, right? Good. A project that is uncertain and which will change as it develops. Okay, that's good. Thank you for that. Iterative learning, I like that. Iterative change and flexibility, iterative process, transparent and focus on creating value, change as it goes, piece of work with clear outcomes. Software project, which understands the importance of change as it progresses. There is no such thing as an Agile project, contradiction in terms. Okay, cool. That might come from that one particularly, you will hear it, or I believe, in the Agile community, or in the part of the Agile community, or the Agilists, as they are called, that understand that projects, or the hashtag no project movement, perhaps. Phased approach, focus on customer, constant change, and approach with the stakeholders at the heart. That allows you to produce smaller deliverables more frequently and efficiently, making it an excellent choice for teams. Okay, solves the problems of changing and uncertain requirements. Okay, good. I'm going to give 30 more seconds to see if there are any more answers around it. And thank you. A number of short releases so the customer gets what they want in increments. Good for when you don't know the end result. Very good. Okay. So from the reading that I see here, we're probably saying, and this is my my deduction based on what I hear, but what I'm reading is that it is a project that uses an Agile approach, which means iterative and adaptive approach for development. In scenarios, if you take, for example, the Kanban framework, that are sort of complex because you don't know the end result. Quicker to market, iterative project with pivots. So changes as it goes. And I will say what will make that different. And it's really interesting to see, because to me, particularly, you don't know the end result in any project. You might know what the customer wants, or you might not know it. And that will create bigger or larger uncertainty. But certainly nobody knows how the product of the project is going to end up looking, and when and if you're going to finish it. So that's part of the discussion that I'm going to actually I'm trying to get with you guys here, or getting going. So now that you have actually or shared with us what is an Agile project, and somebody said that it's a contradiction in terms. So we're going to say a different question: when is a project Agile? Because the conversation actually, or the presentation, is called "I work in Agile projects." So we're going to talk about Agile projects. Is there an Agile project, or there's a project today? So let's see what we find here in the answers that you guys provide. Delivery approach is agreed to be agile. Okay. When the client is involved in the development process. Okay. Working sprints, work broken down into discrete items that each deliver value. When it's following the Agile principles. Okay. Okay. I particularly like the fourth one. When delivers in shorter sprints within MVP and increments rather than a big bang. Okay, no such thing. Reprints definitions has a start end point. Good. Continuous improvement and iteration at each stage. And then again, yes, if you think of definitions here, there are a couple of things. One thing is to use a delivery approach for something. If that makes a project agile or not, we're going to have a conversation around it. But then what is the difference between the answer to this question and the other one? Okay. We added what is an agile project and then when a project is agile, which are different things, or a project is agile if it is using or delivering in iterative and increments and so, or if we don't know the end result. Well, then again, I have here, well, the answer says again, the other one, no such thing. Prince 2 definition has a start and end point, start and end point. That's the definition of a project, right? A temporary endeavor to deliver a product. That's what projects do. They do create, and they don't create value. They deliver products, and this is my understanding. Then again, and my truth, and what I've seen globally, and with my involvement in different organizations, and project management entities globally as well. So if I'm using an agile method, as it is put it there, then it becomes an agile project. That's the question, and that's the reason why I'm having the conversation. Why are people saying, I work in agile projects, and they sell themselves as workers from agile projects? To me, it's rather interesting because as we understand, new projects all of a sudden became, and it is a question, not an affirmation. Is it that projects all of a sudden became uncertain? Or have they been uncertain all the time? Nothing is set in stone. You can stay up to date, new features. Okay. And I would say how that changes from or traditional, predictive, whatever perspectives. If you think around it, what is the purpose of agility? Okay. What did the guys that created the different frameworks that are based, all of them, in iterative development, in smaller chunks of time to deliver a product, meaning that you're sort of creating little small projects. The reason why you're doing that, is because you're in uncertain environments where you cannot predict or try to predict, because that's the other understanding. If you understand, if you're mature enough in your project management, you understand, and in life as well, you will understand that there is no way you can predict the result of anything. Nothing is as planned. Nothing gets done as planned. I mean, there's no plan in the history of humanity that has actually been achieved 100% of how it was planned, because nobody can see the future. All of the different assumptions that we make when creating plans are the primary source of risks, and it is not all the time that they actually do comply or become true as we work for. So if you understand that, and if you understand that what you're looking with to achieve with the smaller iterative things and the smaller teams and the different things that the agile practices portray, is that you're trying to get predictive. You're looking for predictiveness. And if you have in big bang planning or progressive or elaboration, for example, that was there before agility, you were trying to do the same thing. We have always tried, because it is something that our human minds actually need, and our ego needs. I mean, we need to be able to predict what is going to happen, because we want to control what is not controllable. So yes, that's an interesting thing. I mean, and we're going to try to things or call things by their name as I understand they are, particularly. You might agree with me, which is great, and you might not agree with me, which is even greater, okay? Because we might have an interesting conversation afterwards. I mean, it is said that we learn when we find people that think different than us. And then again, I'm not going to be able to, and I cannot, but or share something that is different than the experience-based truth that I have. Okay, I'm not sharing, and I will not share what theory states, okay, or things that you can learn in a course or training, because I mean that will probably have me speaking from the Mount Stupid Peak, based on Dunning-Kruger's framework. Okay, I'm talking there having passed through the valley of despair, or helping organizations transform their cultures and things into agility, if you want to call it, and create before that transforming organizations and cultures through project management or a project-based culture as well, or creating PMOs and transforming PMOs and having conversations with organizations saying, well, there's no such thing as an agile PMO. You please don't fall into that and such. So we're going to, I mean, first thing, we're going to talk about what a project is. Yeah. If you think about it, and this is my perspective, and this is how I've been able to do things all over the globe in all different organizations, service organizations, pharmaceutical organizations, manufacturing organizations, governments, IT organizations. If you think about it, just like a medic does, or a doctor does, when actually they see you, they can actually make a diagnosis of what is happening to you, because all of us are the same thing in structure. Okay, as human beings, if we are complete, if we're lucky enough to be complete, we have 2 hands, we have 2 ears, we have 1 nose, we have 1 mouth, and such. Projects happen to have the exact same structure, all of them, without exception. Okay, all of them have the 4 major stages: an initiation or a definition stage, a planning stage where you organize the work, a development stage where the work is done, and a closing stage where things get transitioned to operations. So we have a couple of transition phases from operations to the project, or the project to operations, and then the planning and development stages, right? And we have 3 different types of work in a project, as well as we have in every organization as well. We have management work, we have delivery work, and we have support work. And if you understand this, and we can agree on that, and we can also agree that what you have are different delivery approaches for the development phase, which can be either predictive or adaptive or iterative, or any other any combination of them if you want to, then you will understand that that has always been the case. It is not something that has changed over the past 20 years. Nothing has changed around it, because projects continue to be projects. So if you're able to abstract yourself and understand that no matter the industry, no matter which industry you work on, if it is software industry, because we have done a whole bunch of projects around there, if it's the construction industry, if it is the commercial industry, if it is retail, if it is manufacturing, if it's government, because a lot of people say, well, you cannot apply these things to government. Well, I've seen it. It is a matter of culture, and we're going to talk about that later on. But if you understand this, and if you're able to abstract and bear with me on this understanding of projects, then we will be able to actually go and see the different things. Projects, they have always been, and they will continue to be, because as we see, are a projection, a prediction of a future that we don't know, that we don't understand. Even if we have a lot of experience, have done 1,000 of such projects in our organization, and they are actually shown in our CV or in a profile, we will see different things in every single project. The customers change, the content changes, the environment changes, the stakeholders change. So projects are flexible and stable in nature. They have a structure, as we just saw, and that structure provides stability. Okay, and they are flexible because no project in the history of life has been planned and delivered exactly as planned. So they have always been flexible. This is from Jim Heisman, one of the well, not exactly like it is stated there, but Jim Heisman, one of the signers of the manifesto that we're going to see in a bit, defines agility as the balance or the right balance between flexibility and stability. Okay, and to me, it's one of my favorite definitions around it, because it confronts a whole bunch of things that people tell and say about agility. Okay, for example, people saying that we need different type of contracts for agile projects because we don't know what we're going to deliver, and I will probably buy into that if you're in a chaos environment or a chaotic environment where you're not going to manage a project, you're managing flow, which is a different thing. Sort of like the situation we have right now with the COVID globally. Countries don't know what they're doing because we don't have experts. We don't have any expert judgment in managing pandemics, and we are learning. If we get another pandemic in 10 years, we will be able to do planning. We will be able to use a structure. But right now, we have a flow of things coming in. We're learning and adapting, which is a different thing. The projects have always been flexible and stable. It is not something new. It has nothing to do with the definition or something that a couple of guys in 2001 decided to join and join forces because they were trying to portray and they were trying to do things differently in a development stage. They were saying, yeah, we don't want to do a big bang and deliver an entire product at the end because we are having complete cycles of this of months and months and months. If we actually fail fast, we will succeed faster. Okay, that's from the lean startup approach, which is not an agile approach, if a lot of people want to put it there, but it was actually based on, because it actually came after the manifesto. Most of the agile frameworks that are recognized as agile existed before the signing of the manifesto, and that's the reason they do. Okay, so we're going to talk about agility, right? So I'm a project manager here at Federico. I've been a project manager for 20 plus years now. And I've managed projects all over the place. In all of the Americas, the US, Latin America, in Europe, in the UK, in Spain, in China, in India, global projects, global programs. I lead portfolios. And I've worked in agility for around a bit over 10 years, or in this environment of agility. Because to me, my understanding is that I have always worked in uncertain environments. Anyone who works in the project management environment or the PMO environment, as I've been working as well, implementing and transforming PMOs for over a decade now, understands that we are working in a probabilistic business, in an uncertain business. Uncertainty is our business. So it actually comes down to us. It is me, the manager of the project, the manager of the program, the director of the portfolio, the director of the organization, the people that work in the project, not the project. The project can have a delivery approach, and you can tailor it according to the situation. And you can have, remember in the PMO Future of last year, we heard a concept with the term of bricolage, right? Which is, and some other people call it hybrid project management. To me, it is project management. Yeah, we all need things and names and labels for things, but a lot of things don't need a label. They just are. So projects have always been a mix of things, and there have always been approaches there. Because, the development or delivery approach is based on the industry. If I'm working in a service industry and I'm moving a process or something from place to another, it is called a migration. If I work in the manufacturing industry and I'm moving the operation from any operation from a place to another, it is called a transferring. It is the same thing, but some people call it migration and the others call it. If I work in the software development industry, I don't construct or build software. I develop software. But if I work in the construction industry, okay, we build buildings and construct buildings. So it is a matter of industry, and the delivery approach has always been there. It is nothing new. We have always done it. And if you have been able to work in different industries as a project manager, you will understand it. The thing is that most project managers work in an industry because we decide to develop a career in a particular industry. And if you see only what you're seeing and you have been seeing, so for you, the development, it is always called development or building or implementing or transforming or transitioning or whatever it is the industry you work on. But once you understand and have the opportunity to work in different industries and understand that development can be called whatever, and it can help, and that it can have as many partitions, subphases, phases, stages, whatever you want to call it, sprints, iterations, as you may need to deliver the product the best way possible to your customer, so that they can actually use that product to create the business impact that they want, which are the benefits, and hence value at the end, which is the value change and the value delivery system. If you understand that, then you will come to the point that it is you who either are or are not an agile. So I'm going to actually ask a question here. How does an agile project manager behave? Somebody that actually is agile. And I don't want to actually call that, and I don't want to label that, but I'm just going to ask you guys, if you're here and you continue to be here with me, how does an agile project manager behave? Or how does any project manager behaves when being agile? That might be the question. No such thing. Good. Servant leader, serves the team, facilitates things, it is flexible, it's transparent, adaptable, no such thing, self-motivated, servant leader, open, embraces change, pragmatic, stakeholder management, respects agile principles. So then again, thank you for answering, and take your time to do it. As we have been saying, I mean, we might behave in an agile manner if we follow a set of principles, considering the definition of agility based on the manifesto, because that's the only way we can do it. So how does a project manager behaves when being agile might be the right phrasing for the question, because it is a matter of it or a mindset. I mean, if you think about it, what agility is, it's a mindset based on 4 values guided by 12 principles. That's as simple as it is. And you're not an agile project manager, and it's really good to see here, because, and the reason why is because I put the word behave there. That's the reason why nobody's actually putting use, because it uses agile approaches, because that's a project, right? And that's a very interesting thing. Because when we get to organizations and we are trying to help them to move towards and say, well, we use Scrum for our projects, so we are actually now an agile organization. So our PMO now has become agile because we're using Scrum as a method or as a framework that is prescriptive to the teams, and that's the reason why we are now an agile PMO. So it all goes back to the way you think and how you behave. So And if you tell me, and I would ask you, how is this different from a good leader or a good project manager without the Agile label on it? And I would probably go to the no such thing again, which is, I have to say that I do agree. A project manager is a project manager, a leader, and a leader serves a team. A leader communicates regularly, provides feedback, promotes success. It is self-motivated, encourages others, embraces change, because projects are change and are uncertain in nature. This sales pitch that you might get, that uncertainty is from the Agile word, comes from people that don't know that they don't know. They're ignorant and they don't understand because they have probably never worked in an environment that is, quote unquote, not Agile. Okay? So that's the reason. I mean, how I would probably could ask an additional question here and say, how is a regular project manager a traditional project manager? But there is no need for that, at least from my end. I don't need to actually label a project manager as an Agile or as a predictive or as a whatever it is that you want to call it. Some people do, because they need to sell and they need to portray their understanding of something. And what I'm trying to do here, and as we say, it is to get rid of that paradigm that says that a project manager uses and can only use because it is what it is instated in them. And if they don't follow the command and control approach, they're not a project manager. And pardon my Spanish, that is bullshit. Okay. A leader, a project manager, has to lead the project. Many of you have heard about the Management 3.0 movement from Denmark, from Jürgen Sapellos. I love the way they portray whatever their movement actually is, but it's based on a motto that says, you manage the process and you lead the people. And that's the reason why you manage the project, because the project is that temporary endeavor and it has processes and it has different types of work. So you have to manage the work, but you have to lead the people. And here you see there's one here that actually gets my attention. It says handling multiple projects. And if you go to the principles, if you understand, and as we're going to see later on, next slide. So this is really interesting because the focusing on a particular project and having your team focusing on one and not many is one of the things that actually blocks organizations from moving towards an Agile or becoming an Agile organization, which then you can probably say. But then if you look around it and if you see what an innovative organization is, and you see the characteristics are the same that an Agile organization has, that a digital organization has, that lean organization has, and whatever it is, because we all need labels for things. But organization is an organization, a living entity comprised by people that behaves in a way that they understand is their culture, or that they understand is the right way to do it and becomes their culture. So the one thing that would say it is, okay, it is all about principles, whether you decide to believe in them or not. These are the 12 principles from the manifesto, and I'm certain you've probably seen them. If you haven't seen them before, welcome. These are the principles. And when we, for example, you're actually asking organizations are moving, yes, I want to create an Agile PMO, or we want to transform our PMO to become Agile. So we're going to actually stream up our processes and use Agile practices. Okay. You should probably ask yourself, out of these 12 principles, how many of those do you believe in? How many of those can guide your actions? And if you see these principles here, there are very few things that a good leader doesn't do. So the guys that created the manifesto, they were creating something that was not new. They were reaffirming what they understood as developers, and that's the other thing that we need to understand. They were software developers. They worked in the development stage. They were part of development teams. They were not managers. And they were probably not leaders of the projects they'd taken part of. Projects will continue to exist. It's the only way organizations actually create their culture. You might say and hear from some people in the Agile movement that there are no such thing as projects, and that the software is a continuum, and a whole bunch of things that are very easily debunked. And I'm not here to debunk them. But I'm just going to say you are, and you can be, if you decide to be labeled as Agile, an Agile PM, because you work in an Agile manner, okay? And if you go to the definition of the dictionary, you will find it. How agile are you? But if you're actually talking about agility and organizational agility, and this thing that has gained traction over the past 20 years, then you need to understand, is your higher priority to satisfy your customer through early and continuous delivery of products that create value for them? Do you understand that if you work in project management, change is going to happen? It is going to be decreasing throughout the life cycle of the project. So the second principle, it's a very safe principle. Even late in development, of course, change will happen whenever the customer wants to change the product, whenever the environment changes, whenever we find a better way to do things, which has always happened in any sort of project, not on many Agile projects. Are you willing, or do you intend to deliver products frequently, from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, with a preference to the short time scale, when needed? You do this when you don't know. There are two things that define the Cunningham framework, which actually will state, and I love it, from Dan Snowden back in '98, which is a long time ago as well. Whether we will define if you're in a simple, in a complex, in a complicated, in a complex, or in a chaotic environment. And there are two things: the people in your project and the clarity of the product that it is expected. There are those are the, I mean, you can say technology, because a lot of people say, well, technology creates the environment. Okay, it is not the technology. It is the experience and knowledge and mastery your team has on that technology that creates the craziness or the chaos in the environment, or the complexity in the environment. Those two things. So if you understand that, and if you know that you're in a simple environment, you don't need to do smaller iterations. You can do them if you want to, but they won't add any value or create any value for you. And if your highest priority is to satisfy the customer by delivering value, that is not a way to do it. So being agile might say, or might take you, or might make you to understand that using an iterative approach for a particular phase in a particular project makes no sense. So using an approach, an agile approach for the delivery, it is not good, and you shouldn't use it. That's being agile to me. Deciding whether focusing on an agile approach or not is the right way, or a combination, or a mix, or a bricolage, or a hybrid, or whatever it is they want to call it, because we need labels, and I get it, we need labels. So if you look around the other ones, I'm not going to go one by one through the principles, but somebody actually said, how does an agile project manager behave? And then I said, it is because we need a label, and it is to drive a conversation that we have it. But I don't believe that we have an agile project managers. We have people that can be agile or not. And if we think about the definition, which is not something, it is something that you want to believe or follow, then you need to go to the principles. And if you don't agree with any of these principles, and if you cannot live or be guided by these principles, then you should not be calling yourself an agile thing. Projects do not follow the principles. People follow the principles. So that's the reason why you cannot have such a thing as an agile project, because it's okay. So that is it. for me to open the conversation to whatever Q&A if we're going to have it, or questions or comments that you might have. I'm convinced, truly convinced, 20 plus years of practice globally, all over the place, with all sorts of people in all sorts of industries. The projects are uncertain in nature. Life is uncertain. Nothing is under control. We need to control it. Yes, our ego needs to control it, and we have that program in our heads. But how agile, or how much my project in any stage or any phase aligns to those principles that we just saw, depends on who leads, and should depend on who leads. When organizations start to understand this and start to empower their leaders of their projects, the leaders of the projects, to make the strategic decision of what approach are we going to use for each project, things will improve. If we continue to see a mandate on project managers, project leads, coordinators, whatever it is you want to call it, scrum masters, product owners, to use a particular approach without analyzing the context and understanding the environment and the capabilities of their teams to define a specific approach for the project, we're going to continue to see the numbers that we have globally. 68% projects failure, success rate of 32% globally. So from my end, this is my humble opinion, there is no way we can actually, and we should probably start. I understand that we need the labels. I understand that we need them. And if you're going to use it, just make sure that you understand what they are. Let's say to me, this is a sort of a starting movement of saying, let's stop calling or saying that I work in Agile. I work in projects, and projects are certain. And I decide to use an X or Y approach to the development of my project. And if you hear that I said my project, it is not in plural, it's singular, because the approach should and be unique to each project that you have. You are a project manager, a program manager, a portfolio manager, a PMO director. Your role is strategic. You have to manage processes and lead people. And to do that, you need to understand things properly as well. Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking your time to respond to the questions, for engaging in the conversation, and for allowing us to develop around the answers that you guys provided. Hannah, you there? You want to open the...
Yeah, great. Thank you, Federico. So that was very insightful, and it left us with, I'm sure, a lot of new points of view for us all to ponder over. We do have a couple of questions for you. So the first being around the reason why the confusion has arisen between Agile and agility. Is the driver from the top of organizations, audits, or something else?
What was the last part of the question? And the organizations, then I...
Is the driver from the top of organizations, audits, or something else?
Well, you know, it is interesting when you think about it, when you talk about agility and agile and that confusion, you know, you have to go back into the story around it, or the history around it, right? So it started very down low in the projects, on the development teams of the projects. And then once the manifesto was there and organizations started to see that these principles make sense, and they make sense because they are, I mean, I remember having a conversation in an organization, and then the CEO of the organization comes and says, well, you know, this is back to basics. And I'm like, okay, yes, that's the reason why everybody likes them. And because they resonate to most of us, because, I mean, customer first, respect the team, serve your team, become a servant leader, a whole bunch of those things that are around it. That's the reason why the movement has transcended the project environment. And we see now everything is agile, right? We see agile HR, agile people, agile IT, lean agile, and a whole bunch of things. And of course, we hear the concept of organizational agility, which is scaling up Agile, as some people say. I mean, the people that talk about scaling Agile, they are referring only to the project environment, right? I mean, at the level of portfolios. But then you have people talking about organizational agility at a higher level, organizations that adapt and are flexible and respond fast to change, not that are fast doing things. So it will depend, and I mean, and we will continue to see the pushing from, as we saw in the answers, people still thinking that that is a software thing, and that actually comes, and you will see it as project managers start to hear about agility, and they hear about, particularly around Scrum, because it is a management approach. All of the other approaches are development approaches. So if you're not a manager, you will not hear them. That's the reason why, if you're not in the software industry. So they try to push it from down above. But then you will hear organizations or leads organizations that find the concept of organizational agility somewhere else, and they want to become agile. And that's where the problem, I think, it is, because you have people talking about two things: being agile or agility, agile or agility. There are two different things. When you're talking about agility, you're talking about the application of the principles and the living guided on those principles, and then that's how you become an agile organization, okay? Because you practice agility, which is a different thing than just being agile. And I think that's where the confusion is. But
okay, sure, great answer. Thank you.
We tend to see, more clarity around it, and we'll see more in the future.
Yeah. Okay, fab. And we have another question. So this question pertains to the future. So what do you see as the next big thing that will take the PPM world by storm once we have calmed the agile revolution?
Well, well, I have no clue what the future brings, right? But that's really interesting. I think, particularly in the PMO, in our PMO environment, I think we're gonna. It is not very far. We're going to start seeing organization, stopping this particular movement right now. They want. I mean, we see all our customers saying we want to we want to create or transform our PMO into an agile PMO. And I think that when organizations start to understand that your PMO can be agile, but by just following and being flexible and adaptable without even using agile approaches, if that's the case, then we're going to start seeing that movement actually. And that's my own perspective, right? But that movement going away, and people understand that yes, I have a PMO, and it is a PMO, and as it matures, it will transform. It will become probably more flexible, more adaptable because of the nature of the business that we are in. And if you want to call it an agile PMO, that's right. But it will not be a thing of the flavor of the month that I want to transform, because I mean, if we are not an agile PMO, we will. I mean, if we are not labeled as an agile PMO, we will die. We will. If you are not flexible and adaptable, you will die, and your PMO will cease to exist. But that doesn't. It has nothing to do with using agile approaches.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thank you. And lastly, we always like to get some PMO wisdom from our speakers, Federico. So if you had the power to go back in time and give yourself some advice, what would it be? Tricky.
I would probably say be open to everyone's truth. It is like, it's really easy when we get knowledge around something to believe that we have the truth and the sole truth. And that's the reason why I was so it made so much emphasis in saying that this is what I'm sharing are my scars, the things that I can share, the way that I perceive things based on my experience. But I understand that there are a whole bunch of different experiences there, a whole bunch of people, tons and tons of people that might have actually even less experience than me, but they know things that I don't know. And I would say to my younger self, which actually used to think that he was the owner of the truth and the ultra alpha and omega project manager and program manager and then PMO and this thing and that, to be open. I mean, you learn everything every day. You learn things for everyone. So, I mean, and everyone's truth is a truth, or as you may say it, no truth is a truth, it will allow you to grow faster, probably, and become wiser, which is probably not the intent, but it will allow you to be a better person. So that would be my thing. You will be able, I would have been able to help my customers better back in the past, if I would have been open to not try to impose my truth to the customers. A lot of the times they know better than you how to do things. They just need a little guidance. And then if you open up yourself to that and learn their things, learn their ways, learn their truths, you might be able to help them better. So that's what I would say to myself as a consultant and as a person as well.
No, that's a great answer. Thank you very much. So that is the end of the questions that we've got, and we really do thank you, Federico. It was such a great webinar and it's been an honour to have you. And thank you to all of our listeners that have joined us today. We do hope to see you at some of our other future PMO Academy Learning Week webinars. We also do have a networking event this Friday from 5:30 to 7:30. And this we'll be joined by Debbie Dorr, Chief Executive from the APM, Chartered Body for Project Management, and we'll be splitting into 2 breakout rooms, one for Spain and one for UK. Please do sign up to that. That's a free networking event, and we'd love to see as many of you as we can. Okay, Federico, thank you so much.
Thank you, Hannah. No, it was my pleasure. And thanks everyone.
It's our pleasure to have you. Thank you.